Welcome, everybody. I am Mohana, your coach at Way Forward, and I'm so happy that you could take out the time to watch this webinar. The topic for today's webinar is on managing relationships, making the best of home and work life. Now, I'm going to start this webinar by asking you a simple question. If you're going to invest now in your best future self, where would you put your time and energy? Or in simple words, what would happiness mean to you? I wouldn't be surprised if your answer includes being rich and famous and hitting on the milestones you wish to achieve in your career. Now, and quite reasonably so, as we are constantly told to push harder, to work more in lesser time, and this leaves us with really less time to take care of our relationships. Then why do we need relationships? What good can it possibly do for us? Now, this is where I would like to bring in a very interesting study called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It's a study that has been going on for more than 75 years, and a fun fact, 60 out of the original 724 participants are still alive and actively participating in the study. Now, the scientists came across one finding consistently over the period of time, and that is good and close relationships make us happier and healthier, and loneliness kills. However, here I would like to make a discretion whereby again picking out a point from the study itself and saying that more than the quantity of the relationships we have, it is the quality of the relationships that matter the most. It's like in our social media accounts, we have quite a few number of friends in our lists, but how many of them are really close to us? And how many of them bring you happiness and joy? Another interesting finding was that having people on whom we can depend upon, it actually protects our brains from cognitive decline as compared to those who report that they don't have such people on whom they can depend on. By our cognitive abilities, of course, I mean our memory, short term and long term, attention and concentration, and many more such functions. Now, if you can just look at this image in front of you and try to figure out what the image shows us. You may see two faces facing each other, and many will also notice a vase in between the faces. This tells us that the same situation can bring out different perceptions from us. Having different perceptions from another person is quite natural, as otherwise life may get quite monotonous if everyone believed and acted in one particular way only. Now, again, different perceptions give rise to different expectations, leading to conflicts in relationship. Again, expectations will be much different from person to person, but here it becomes important to assess whether certain expectations are realistic or unrealistic when it comes to a particular relationship. For example, my child should be able to score good marks in maths is one expectation, but to say that he should be able to score 100 out of 100 when in actuality he is barely getting 40 can be an unrealistic expectation on our part. From these perceptions and expectations can arise conflict. Now, for example, I want my partner to call me multiple times during the day to just talk to me for a short while. And if he doesn't, I may even start to question whether he cares for me or not. Now, a good way to manage such conflicts is to look at a fact versus opinion. What are facts? Facts are statements that have direct evidence, that has a consensus among everybody around that this is, for example, Delhi is the capital city of India. Now, what can be an opinion? Opinions are again based on our feelings, our past experiences, and prior knowledge. So, the example that dogs make the best pets can actually be a fact for a dog lover, but for somebody who doesn't love a dog, it's more of an opinion for him or her. Now, the last example that I'm going to talk about on fact versus opinion is that this is a chair and it is the most comfortable chair in the room. What is fact and what is opinion? I think you will agree with me if I say that this is a chair is a fact and it is the most comfortable chair in the room is an opinion. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the exercise that you can do right now with me. Look at the chart. First, there's a thought, and then comes and then comes checking whether it's a fact or an opinion, and then see if the expectation attached to it, to either fact or the opinion, is realistic or unrealistic. Um, for example, employee that does not answer or reply to the emails sent to her over the weekends. Now, following the chart in front of you, we can try to understand the process with which we would think about the situation. Is it a fact that the employee does not answer any emails over the weekends, or is it only on particular occasions that she hasn't been able to? Now, the person may wish not to put her time and effort on work over the weekends, and yet is expected to be answerable at all times. Here we can try to analyze the expectation that is attached to her behavior. Is it a realistic expectation to have on the employee that she chooses work over her personal life over the weekends? Is it a realistic expectation? And absolutely, there are times and certain job profiles where people are expected to be connected all the time through their electronic devices. Exceptions will always be there, and so it becomes all the more important to be able to communicate about them as well. And with that, we come to our next segment, that is our communication style. Before we before we dive into the different styles of communication that we tend to engage in, let's just take a moment to talk about the verbal and non-verbal aspects of the way we communicate. You may have noticed that as important as it is to communicate verbally, we also focus a lot on the non-verbal aspects of our communication. Just a short example will be something like me looking over my phone very frequently while I'm supposed to listen to my partner talking about something that happened at his workplace. So, what would be the message that I'll be sending, or what will be the message that my partner will be receiving from my body language? That I'm sure that my partner will feel that I'm not really giving my 100% to the conversation and thus may feel negatively about the current situation. Um, so now let us look at the chart in front of us right now. important it is to be able to be there for others during their bad times, it's equally important to be able to respond constructively to the good news that they bring us. Now let's look at the chart in front of us right now. This is talking about the different types of communication that we engage in. The first is active and constructive, where one is maintaining eye contact, is authentic and present in the conversation, and enthusiastically is supporting the other person. For example, if my colleague comes to me and says that Mohana, I got promoted, when the way I will be able like one example of active and constructive way of communicating my response would be that that's great, that's absolutely great, I am so happy for you, and it must mean a lot to you, and I'm sure that they're going to give you better opportunities and better challenges as well. Now the second type of communication becomes passive and constructive, where with the same message that my colleague, when she comes over to me and says that she got promoted, my response in a passive and constructive way would be quite delayed, a delayed response, not that enthusiastic, but more like, "Oh, I'm glad that I'm glad to hear that," and that has a low energy, a delayed response, and I'm more or less quiet. The third type of communication style is active and destructive, where I am downright demeaning and dismissing the good news that she has presented me with, where I will say that you got a promotion. Uh, I'm sorry to say this, but do you know the amount of work they'll give you? And yeah, so something like that. That's the example of active and destructive communication style. And the last one is passive and destructive, where I am not at all focusing on what the other person is saying, but more like focusing more, turning it more inwards. Where I'm focusing more on myself, and for this, in this situation, how I didn't get a promotion but my colleague did, and so again, like putting that across, I don't know when I'll get promoted. Good for you, but I have to go and work now. We'll talk later. So this was one way of passive and destructive communication style that we follow. From the above four communication styles that we talked about, we can fairly assume that being active and constructive is the best way to respond to good news. And now I'll be sharing some tips at becoming a pro at active and constructive. In our communication style. Number one, posing questions for the positive event to let them know that you are curious and interested to know more about what they have to share. Number two is to elaborate on the consequences of the event for the person. In my colleague's case, I can say that this promotion will get her better opportunities. That's a consequence of the promotion that is she is getting as well. Now, third is to reflect on the meaning of the event for the person. What does the promotion mean for my colleague? I think that's a very good question in general to ask of people, just to get to know them a little bit better and to make them feel that our care for them is not superficial. So with this, we come to the end of our webinar. I hope you had a nice time watching this video. Just a quick recap of all the topics that we have covered so far. One is that good and close relationships make us happier and healthier. Second, perceptions differ, and with them come realistic and unrealistic expectations. And the differences in expectations give rise to conflicts. And a very good way of managing conflicts is to analyze one's thoughts on the basis of whether it's a fact or an opinion and what kind of expectations are attached to that. Finally, we talk about the importance of communication in relationships, and we found out that being active and constructive while responding to good news is the best way to strengthen the bond that we share with others. Now, who we are? Way Forward is a digital emotional wellness company, and our vision is to make emotional wellness accessible to all. And we do that through offering goal focused programs that are based in science. And we provide our services to you through a toll free number as well, that is 1-800-200-299. And we can vouch for your privacy, and whatever you share with us will be strictly kept confidential. Thank you and have a nice day.